From the Ticats Audio Network, this is the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker.
Ticat fans, welcome to the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker. It's our weekly update with myself. I'm Luke Tasker. I'm joined by Orlondo Steinauer every week. Coming out of the bye week, I'll get right into it, Coach. How was it for yourself? Productive week?
Yeah, it's you never really turn it off, but the fact that you can actually wake up on your body's own clock is not ever a hateful thing in this profession. But you're always kind of chomping at the bit to get back out there. But you definitely learn to take advantage of these bye weeks. It was a quick one, so it was a quick turnaround, but managed to cut the grass and take the trash out, and do some things that normally bypass you during a regular week.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so you took some time off. You got a little rest in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. A lot more than you would get on a regular week.
Yeah, that's great. They're valuable, those breaks in there. When I first started playing, there was one bye week in an 18-game season, which is that's a hard. Those are a couple hard long stretches. Those nine game stretches, and by the time I was done, we had 3 of them. So it was we were lavished in bye weeks by the end of it. And in 2019, of course, we had an additional bye week at the end. So either way,
absolutely,
they're valuable to take. How about the coaching staff? What did you expect of your staff throughout the bye week?
Yeah, very, very low expectations. We may shoot at each other a couple of texts, but that's it. There's no quote unquote homework or anything to do. They're professionals. I'm not really a micromanager type guy. Like they're hired to do a job, and they do it very professionally. So I have all the confidence in them. So no expectations except for to reintroduce themselves to their family and their neighbors, because they probably don't think that they live there. But I just want them to really enjoy the time with their family. I think that's important. It's good for the soul for sure.
What about the players? Was there any expectations throughout the week?
Yeah, just take care of your body. And same thing. If you're going away, go see your family and whatnot. And if you're sticking around, just enjoy it. Do some things that you enjoy doing. And, that's what it's about. I don't, to each their own, but when it's time to come back to work, let's be dialed, ready to roll. So, if we felt that here today on day one, for sure.
I always find there are two views of the bye week. You get folks, and in my opinion, it's the folks that are furthest away from impacting a team that are always sort of have that question. Well, why don't you just practice more? Why don't you just get in there and watch the film and take advantage of the extra days? And then, of course, there's the mindset of relaxation, getting your mind away from it. You, of course, subscribe to the latter, as do I as a player. But is it a tough decision as a head coach? I know as a player, I know what I want to do. From the other side of the on the sidelines, is it a tougher decision?
Maybe I'm too close to, or I don't really know the right way to phrase it, but having played for 12 years, you kind of have a different approach, not better or worse, just a different approach to it. And I do know how valuable it is. And I do know that it is rough on families, and to remember that the coaches, the video, the therapy, everybody in the organization, they're all people first, and they just happen to have titles. And, that sometimes the family goes unnoticed, and you kind of chalk it up to, well, they kind of know what they sign up for when you're a professional. And, I kind of have subscribed the other way and say that if there's an opportunity for you to be there for a couple more games or a recital or anything that's happening, or just be present, I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah. 2014, you remember the last game of our season that year. We beat Montreal by 8 or more, we're first. If we lose, we're not in the playoffs. And if we win by less than 8, I think we would have been then hosting the semifinal, or whatever. Everything was still available. And we won by, 14 to get the bye week. And Ken Austin gave the team the week off. And we got out of there. And I remember him from the media sort of taking a little bit, not heat, but just a little bit of questioning, like how, don't you want to get on top of things for the Eastern Final? And as a player, I was like, this is the best thing we could possibly do is get out of it. And then, of course, we beat Montreal again 2 weeks later for the East Final. So it's set in my mind in stone what a bye week is for. Now you've had day one now. So how did it turn out? Was it a positive day on the field?
It really was. And if you have the right people, you kind of get that natural energy lift. I think players, coaches, everybody kind of wants to get back to work. And so you kind of get that natural energy lift. I think the real, I guess the real, I'm going to come up with a word here in a second. What you want to be able to do is take that energy and transform it into execution, right? You just don't want to be out there running around mindlessly, just excited to be there. At this point in the season, you want to execute at a high level. And I think that, we were able to find that right mix out there today.
Dane Evans out throwing the football. How's it to have him back on the field?
Yeah, it's good. He's been throwing for a while, and, he didn't have an arm injury. It's just the torque and doing things full speed. And we've talked about that, when it comes to most injuries is, running on the side and, shadowing people and doing different things is one thing, and getting out there with your teammates is another. So, we'll see how Dane reacted and how he feels. It's always a 24-hour deal. How do you feel? You could feel great after practice and then wake up sore, and it's hard to put one foot down on the floor. He's a tough customer, I'll tell you that. But it's, the cool thing about Dane, Luke, is that, he remained present regardless. It didn't really feel like he was gone. So he was on the field all but, some doctor appointment days. So to have him back out there, throwing and just being a part of more is awesome, but he's been present since his injury. He's just that type of man and teammate.
Yeah. And the start of his career was that same role that he falls back into right now, when he really was a really positive, backup quarterback before he got his chance to take over. He was a guy who you could trust, not only in the event that if he did have to get into the game, which obviously that went well for him in 2019.
Yeah.
But just you could trust his attitude and energy in the locker room. It doesn't surprise me that he snaps right back into that mold easily. That said, Jeremiah, his best game probably since 2019, and since he was operating at the highest level in the CFL, coming off of his best game since then. What's your take on where he is right now in his career and for this team this year?
Well, for his career, it'd probably be a longer conversation. But where he's at right now is, I feel like he's about as close to healthy as he's going to get for this season. At this point in time, he's got some live game situations under his belt. So, we're obviously confident in both quarterbacks. That's why we re-signed both of them, and credit to them for wanting to be a part of it. The career, I don't have a crystal ball when it comes to any quarterback or any player, but, I see both of these quarterbacks playing for a long time in this league if they so choose. Obviously that health is the name of the game for any athlete. And at the most important position on the football field, that's even heightened. And there's so much predicated on that, though, as it's, be it protection, be it receivers in the right spot, be it understanding the defense. There's just so much that goes into it. So very comfortable with his mindset and where he's at right now. And, we just look forward to see, and, that's why you play the games, though, right? The practice is one thing and you play the games. So the cool thing is that both quarterbacks have performed at a high level in big football games. And, we're just taking it one day at a time with both of them.
Getting ready for this weekend, the Redblacks, the second matchup this year. Obviously, they've had their struggles. They are in a tough position for their own destiny in 2021, at least. They have made some changes and progressed in some ways. But what do you expect from them this weekend? To
play like, they're like a playoff game. And what you see on tape is they play hard. It hasn't shown up on the scoreboard, but again, like every week, Luke, we always are going to respect our teammates and see what they do, and you put together a game plan. But 85% of the time is going to be focused on ourselves and our execution. But they've got arguably the best returner in the game who really ignites their football team. Their special teams plays hard. I feel like they play hard in all three phases, to be honest with you. And that there's a fine line in each game that could determine an outcome. But obviously we've got to continue to make steps and progress. And I feel like we took some steps over the last couple of weeks. We've got to finish better. That's not a secret there, but I'm comfortable where we're at right now because it's where we're at. There's not anything you can do about the past. All you can do is move forward. And so I'm really looking forward to watching this practice tape from day one, to be honest with you, because that's what's in our control. And then I'll be fired up for day two. So coming full circle, I expect them to come out swinging. And I, as every week, I just love our football team, and I'm waiting to see, our response.
Yeah, it is effectively a playoff game for them, right? Edmonton in the East has the West has even a tougher ladder to climb. But you got to expect Ottawa to be really no holds bar. Everything is a go because they are ripping on with the blast of their fingernails if they want a chance at this year. They have to come through Tim Hortons Field though, and yes. I always loved the phrase "keep a losing team losing." What is it that the Ticats have to do this weekend to keep this losing team losing?
Nothing different than any other week. And that is we've got to, protect the quarterback, and we got to get after the quarterback, and we got to protect the football and take it away. It's there, there's other little variables that go in there if you want to get into fine fixtures and details about, not limiting explosions. But at the end of the day, that's going to give us the best opportunity each week to win consistently. And that will be the focus. And so if you ask me that any other week, you'd probably get the same answer unless something went terribly right or terribly wrong, that we have to address it on the head. Like we don't brush anything under the rug. We're going to address the elephants in the room, but we're not going to dwell on it, but we're definitely not going to ignore it. So I'm excited because your real test each week is the game. Right. You can see great steps, but our job is to just prepare. And then we got to go out there and perform.
Yeah. I mean, there's been 3 times where the Ticats have lost by 3 or less. It's incredible how differently things would look if it weren't for 5 points. And,
right.
I guess after a bye week, you choose to get all the rest, no day zero. Did you go back to the game film and watch that today with the team? Or speaking of the last week's Toronto film, I mean?
Yeah, we did when we brought him in for rundown, and that was quote unquote our day zero. We did not go on the field, but we did do rundown and lift, and we revisited some things because there's some things that needed to be addressed. And I think, I prefer doing it that way versus right after the game. Some people would say, well, why don't you bring them in and put it to bed? But, sometimes you got to let it just sit for a minute and marinate. And, at the end of the day, there wasn't a lot that needed to be said. Like you could feel it in the locker room. And that's just a sign that you have the right people, in my opinion. You are what your record says you are, but it's your own belief system and what goes on behind these walls that's really ultimate important. Everything else is just noise.
What jumped off the film during the rundown from last week's game?
Just opportunity to close the game out in all 3 phases. And, it wasn't just the final drive. It wasn't just, getting the field goal. There's, with special teams opportunities, offense and defense. And that's what a team is. Now, each one of those phases, if you asked, the people on those teams, they'd say, yeah, I want to be in that situation. I want you to be able to point the finger at me when the game's on the line. And when you don't come through, it's a disappointing thing. But that's really was the emphasis, right? It's easy to point to 2 plays or a last drive or whatnot, but there was, 3 minutes, 4 minutes before that contributed to that situation. So we sharing it together, and that's really what jumped out.
Yeah. Well, we got 5 games left, and the East is taking shape. Of course, Toronto has a 2-game lead on the Ticats. Montreal is sort of an interesting place right now, and they just make a big trade. How does Trevor Harrod's presence back in the East sit with you? What's your take on that?
Well, my only personal experience with Trevor is just my time in Toronto when he was the backup quarterback there, and I had a lot of respect for him and how he was buying his time behind, at that point, Ricky Ray, and then of course Zach Caleros was there, so we were pretty quarterback rich there. And of course, Jarius Jackson was also there. So, and then when he finally got his opportunity, I thought he did a great job. So, obviously, he's a champion from being on that team. He's led his own team in his own way. So I think I can't speak for Montreal, but, obviously there's got to be some comfort food there. There's got to be a level of comfort, regardless of their impression of their current starting quarterback or not. Obviously they made a move for what they felt was best for them, but so him coming back to the East, really, haven't spent a lot of time on it. I just, I'm happy for him. If, I just think he's a good person and I've been around him, but I haven't been around him for a few years now. Yeah.
And looking ahead, the Ticats aren't going to face, short of the playoffs, they don't face Montreal, but, it'll be interesting to see how that shakes down as the playoffs become more and more focused into picture. But Coach, we'll call it there for the Coach O Show for the day. Day 2 tomorrow, and I cannot wait to get back into the booth in the stadium this Saturday for what will be surely a great game against the Redblacks. Thanks for your time, Coach. Looking forward to to the Coach O Show as weeks progress.
Thanks, Luke. Have a great one. We'll see you next week.
The Coach O Show with Luke Tasker. Like, subscribe, and find out what Coach is thinking every Tuesday.